Okay guys, so welcome back to my YouTube channel. So for today's video, we will discuss the continuation of cost accounting series, wherein the focus of the discussion will be accounting for materials under manufacturing costs. Okay, so as we all know, materials is considered as part of our manufacturing costs. And it's also considered as prime cost because we cannot make a finished product without raw materials. So since raw materials is a vital part of manufacturing costs, it requires a separate discussion under cost accounting. So at alam naman natin, ang materials ay mayroong malaking impact sa ating manufacturing cost. So kapag mas maganda ang accounting system na ini-employ natin sa materials, it will be beneficial to our company. So as an accountant or as cost accountant, so dapat familiar tayo kung ano yung objective ng accounting system kapag ang pinag-uusapan natin ay materials. So if we are talking about materials, actually meron niyang two objectives. So number one, yung proper accounting ng materials, at the same time, yung proper control ng materials natin. Kasi at the end of the day, ang objective ng company is to present the right amount on our financial statement, at the same time to control the cost or the amount to be reflected doon sa ating materials account. So under accounting, meron lang naman tayong three major objectives dyan. So number one, which is completeness. If we say completeness, so lahat ng ma-purchase nating materials at naipasa na yung risk and reward sa management or sa ating manufacturing business, dapat po naka-record yan lahat. So kapag hindi mo yan ni-record, magkakaroon tayo ng effect dun sa ating financial statement, which is magkakaroon po ng impact dun sa decision na gagawin ng ating mga shareholders. So under accounting, so dapat po complete yung information na magagather natin. So at the same time, under accounting, one of the objectives is that proper recognition of materials issued to production. So as we all know, under cost accounting, ang ating materials ay naka-reflect sa ating raw materials inventory. So hindi lang sapat na ma-record lang natin sila sa raw materials inventory, kailangan din alamin din natin yung right amount o yung reasonable na amount na ita-transfer natin sa production na ililipat naman natin sa work in process. So dapat proper recognition at tama po yung maita-transfer nating account. So lastly, we have proper valuation of inventory, which is the ending balance. So at the end of the day, alam naman natin ang raw materials available per sale, dalawa yung pinupuntahan yan. Yung isa napupunta sa direct materials at yung isa naman ay napupunta sa ending balance. So under accounting, dapat meron tayong proper treatment of how to value inventory, which is pag-uusapan natin yan sa mga susunod na slide or kaya naman sa next video. So another objective of accounting for materials is that actually the control of it, which is part ng ating management accounting. So syempre, aside from ilagay yung mga amount na dapat ilagay under accounting for materials, so as far as the manufacturing business is concerned, dapat nakokontrol din nila yung materials na nagre-reflect doon kasi if the materials cost is controlled, it will be beneficial to the company as a whole. So actually, merong two objectives ang control natin. So number one, so of course, which is beneficial to sa ating mga customers. So the quality of the materials must be maintained. So of course, kasi kapag ang materials natin ay naging substandard na, hindi natin yan ma-maintain. So magkakaroon po yan ng disadvantage or adverse impact doon sa ating manufacturing business. So onti ang ating mga customer, so baka magsara. So ibig sabihin, as far as the quality control is concerned, dapat po mine-maintain yan ng ating manufacturing business. So another objective under control, which is pag-uusapan natin to later, which is the minimization of cost. So under materials cost, as much as possible, we have to minimize the cost in order to have a good result, which is to increase our income, because if the cost is minimized, so kapag maliit ang cost natin, so lalaki ang ating gross profit. So eventually, lalaki ang ating net income, which is the objective of the management. So yung minimization of cost, kailangan po yan, parehas yan, laging binabantayan yung quality ng product. Kasi hindi naman tayo pwedeng bumili ng pinakamurang halaga ng materials tapos isa-sacrifice natin yung quality kasi magkakaroon ito ng adverse impact doon sa ating customers or sa demand ng products na ibinebenta natin. So ito yung kailangan yung tandaan under cost accounting for materials. So under accounting, so proper valuation ng inventory, proper recognition of materials, issue to production, at the same time yung completeness. So sa control, we have quality materials must be maintained and the minimization of cost as much as possible to have a better result of the operation. Okay, so before we proceed dun sa accounting for materials at the same time yung controlling ng materials, I think kailangan muna natin maintindihan yung concept o yung process related to materials. So kung ano ba yung mga affected departments, so paano ba nakukuha ni factory yung mga materials na kailangan niya for production. So for illustration, let's say for example, we have two departments. So two major departments or yung ating warehouse. So we have the factory and the warehouse. So factory, this is where the raw materials being transformed from raw materials to finished goods. Then we have the raw materials warehouse. This is where the raw materials being stored while wala pa siya doon sa ating factory. So sa warehouse, meron po tayong tinatawag yan na stored room department or yung ating warehouse mismo. So under storeroom, dito po nakastore lahat ng raw materials na hindi pa natin ini-issue sa factory. So ibig sabihin, dito lang muna yan nakabodega. So under storeroom, meron po yung maintain na accounting documents. So yung documents na yon, ang tawag po natin doon ay bill of materials. Ang bill of materials, nakalagay po dyan lahat ng mga requirements ni factory para alam ni storeroom kung ilan yung itatransfer niya kay factory at kung malalaman niya or makokontrol niya kung kailangan na ba niyang mag-order ng panibagong raw materials to replenish yung mga nawala. So, yung bill of materials, ito po yung guide ni storeroom para malaman niya kung mag-order pa ba siya o mag-order na ba siya or tama ba or enough ba yung itatransfer niya sa factory. Pero ang lagi niyong tandaan, yung bill of materials, ang information na yan, nanggagaling yan kay factory kasi sila naman yung nakakaalam ng entire process. So si storeroom lang yung may hawak niyan para lang ma-ensure niya na yung na ita-transfer natin kay factory ay enough. At the same time, magkakaroon siya ng information kung kailangan na bang mag-order ng bagong raw materials. Okay? So let's say for example, ubos na yung ating materials sa storeroom or nag-trigger na tayo na kailangan na mag-order. So kailangan pong mag-create na storeroom ng another accounting documents. So ang tawag doon sa accounting documents na gagawin ni storeroom ay ang tawag po ay purchase request. So purchase request, normally pinapadala po yan sa purchasing department. So ibig sabihin, si purchasing department, ang trabaho niyan ay bumili ng requirement ni storeroom na na-require ni factory. So paano mag-trigger or paano gagalaw si purchasing department? Through purchase request. So ibig sabihin, if you are working in purchasing department, so hindi ka pwedeng gumalaw unless otherwise meron tayong purchase request na nanggaling sa storeroom. So just to make sure na yung ating mga purchases ay legit. Okay? So once na meron ng purchase request si purchasing department, so normally nakalagay dun sa purchase request yung specification na kailangan ni storeroom na kinakailangan naman ni factory. So let's say for example, ilang meters ba yan? Ano yung quality? So magkano yung estimated amount and so on and so forth. So ano yung trabaho ni purchasing department? So ang trabaho ni purchasing department is to source the required raw materials from different suppliers. So ibig sabihin, si purchasing department maghahanap po yan ng mga suppliers. So normally meron yung portfolio of suppliers na sasabihin niyo yan, oy, may kailangan akong ganitong klaseng raw materials, meron ba kayo? So normally maghahanap yan, maghahanap yan or tatawag yan sa maraming mga suppliers. So let's say for example, we have supplier number 1, supplier number 2, and we have supplier number 3. So ang gagawin po ng supplier number 1 and supplier number 2 and supplier number 3, they will send a quotation. So quotation yung tawag sa document na yon na ipapadala kay purchasing department. So nakalagay doon, ito yung specification na kailangan nyo. We have available raw materials for that. So kapag pinili nyo ako, so edi good, 'di ba? So let's say for example, ang napili natin sa quotation is supplier number 2. So dahil nakuha niya yung mga requirements, tapos siya yung nagbigay ng list amount. So tandaan po, ang trabaho ni purchasing department uli is maghanap ng right supplier. So as much as possible, makuha niya yung pinaka-mura without sacrificing the quality of the products. Kasi di naman porket yung mura, yun na yung mananalo. Kasi mamaya, mura nga, substandard. So magkakaroon po yan ng adverse effect dun sa ating manufacturing process. So tandaan, si purchasing department, maghahanap lang yan ng supplier, pero kailangan yung mahanap niyang supplier ay ma-match yung requirement na kailangan ni storeroom. Okay? So let's say, for example, ulitin ko lang, ang nakuha nating supplier is si supplier number 2. So ano yung magiging next step? So si purchasing department ay magpe-prepare na po yan ng another document. Ang tawag naman po doon ay purchase order. Purchase order is a accounting document na contract yan actually between the supplier and the manufacturing business. So ang trabaho ni supplier dun sa purchase order is to deliver kung ano yung specification na kailangan based dun sa kanilang agreement. Tapos si warehouse naman, once na na-receive yung goods, syempre, babayaran yan. So, kumbaga, meron na silang agreement na ako na yung kinuha yung supplier, so wag na kayong kuha sa iba kasi meron na tayong purchase order. So, ngayon, ang bola na kay sa supplier na kasi sa supplier, he needs to deliver the product to the warehouse, which is yung kailangan niya ng factory natin. So, once na meron na siyang produkto na available for delivery, so pupunta na po yan sa ating warehouse. So pero hindi yan pwedeng dumiretso sa storeroom kasi kailangan niya pang dumaan sa other department. Ang department na pagdadaanan niya ay tinatawag po nating receiving department. So si receiving department para po yung gatekeeper ng ating warehouse. So, ibig sabihin, hindi pwedeng i-deliver ni supplier diretso kay storeroom kasi i-assess pa ni receiving department yung goods na deliver ng supplier. So ang kailangan niyang document diyan from the supplier yung purchase order which is yung prepare ng purchasing department just to make sure that the transaction is legit. So ibig sabihin, dumaan siya sa process, 'di ba? Kasi normally si receiving department hindi siya pwedeng tumanggap ng goods nang walang purchase order kasi pwedeng mangyari na hindi si supplier ay hindi naman talaga supplier. So dapat legit supplier talaga siya. So malalaman po 'yon kapag meron po tayong purchase order. So another document na kinihingi ni receiving department is the delivery receipts. So yung delivery receipts, ito po yung resibo na nakalagay yung mga specification na ng goods na tanggap. So dapat magmamatch yan dun sa actual, sa physical value or yung physical count ng dineliver ni supplier. So at the same time, normally si supplier, pinapadala niya na din yung sales invoice. So ang sales invoice, ito naman po yung basis ng ating manufacturing business para mabayaran si supplier. So tandaan, ang sinasala ng receiving department, yung purchase order, delivery receipts, tapos sales invoice. Dapat magmamatch po yung tatlo na yan. So once okay na, so together with the product, so ang gagawin po ni receiving department, tatanggapin na yung goods, then tatanggapin na yung purchase order, delivery receipts, and sales invoice. So, ang next step is to deliver the actual product to storeroom. So, normally, nagpe-prepare pa si receiving department niya ng receiving report, pero internal document na lang yun, di ba? So, once na okay na yung goods, i-deliver na yun sa storeroom, tapos si storeroom, i-store niya na yung raw materials, then, nasa kanya na yun, depende kung i-deliver niya na kay factory, so, depende doon sa arrangement nilang dalawa. Okay? So, di-deliver niya na yun sa factory kasi kailangan nga ng factory. So ngayon, paano mababayaran si supplier number 2? So hindi siya pwedeng pumunta kay receiving department. So ang gagawin ng receiving department, ipapadala yung mga document na to doon sa ating accounting department. So yung accounting department, which is us, so pwede rin siyang tawaging accounts payable department kasi tayo yung buyer, tapos si supplier yung seller. So accounts payable department ang nag-aayos niyan. So ano yung mga requirements ni accounting department para mabayaran natin si supplier? So hihingi niya po yung tatlong documents na yan. So kailangan nag-match yung purchase order, delivery receipts, and sales invoice. Ang tawag po natin dyan ay matching. So kapag nag-match lahat ng information, so ano ang magiging resolution ng accounting department? Of course, to recognize the necessary journal entry. So dahil ang na-receive natin is raw materials, mag-record na tayo. So debit ng raw materials, then credit ng accounts payable. Okay? So kailangan po kompleto yung mga documents. Meron tayong purchase order, delivery receipts, and sales invoice. Kailangan natin ng purchase order just to make sure that transaction is legit. Kailangan natin ng delivery receipts just to make sure that there is an actual delivery. And kailangan natin ng sales invoice para meron tayong basis for payment and recording. So kapag may kulang dyan, dapat hindi mo yan nire-record ni accounting department tsaka ni sales or ni accounts payable department. So, okay, let's say for example, okay na, wala ng problema. So, ang next step, payment. So, si accounting department, hindi po yan authorized to pay the supplier. Kailangan niya yan padala sa ating treasury department. Treasury Department or kaya naman Cash Department. So si Cash Department, sila po yung task para bayaran si supplier. So ngayon, bago siya mababayaran ni Treasury Department, so syempre may mga requirements din kay Treasury Department. So yung first requirements niyan, yung pinadala ni Accounting Department. So ita-transfer lang. Ang trabaho lang ni Accounting Department ay ma-record lang tong entry na to. Ma-record yung raw materials tapos yung accounts payable. So kapag na-record na yan, pupunta na kay Treasury Department. Si Treasury Department naman, i-match niya ulit. So para lang just to make sure na kompleto yung mga documents. So pag kompleto yung mga documents, so normally, yung meron niyang pine-prepare sa accounting department na purchase invoice naman para naman sa internal document lang. Just to make sure na na-record na yung raw materials then accounts payable. So kapag okay na yan, okay na. So ang gagawin po ng Treasury Department ay magpe-prepare po siya ng tinatawag nating disbursement voucher. So ang disbursement voucher, ito na po yung evidence na kompleto na yung invoice, kompleto na yung delivery receipts, purchase order, na-record na yung corresponding accounts payable. So kapag meron na tayong disbursement voucher, so magke-create na tayo ng journal entry na yan. Normally, ang nag-record na yan si Treasury Department. So from accounts payable, ililipat yan to another liability account. So ang tawag natin doon ay vouchers payable. So ginagawa yan for security purposes and for control purposes. So ibig sabihin, magde-debit ng accounts payable kasi nag-credit tayo kanina sa accounting department, then credit ng vouchers payable. So meaning, meron na pong corresponding vouchers dyan. So once meron na tayong corresponding voucher, nakapag-prepare na ng disbursement voucher, ang next step ni Treasury Department is to prepare a check. So yung check, ito na mismo yung cash na ibabayad natin kay supplier. Okay na, so once na kompleto na itong mga document na yan, so ang next step, pupunta tayo sa supplier kay Treasury Department or kaya naman si Treasury Department pupunta kay supplier, bit-bit yung ating cheque. Yan. So, kapag nag-bit-bit na yung cheque na yan, so I forgot to mention, so upon preparation of check, so dapat nag-recognize na ng entry si Treasury Department which is yung credit tayo ng cash in bank. So, debit ka na ng vouchers payable, then credit tayo ng cash in bank. Then, kapag na-prepare na yan, so ibig sabihin, nakapag-prepare na ng cheque. So, yung cheque, ipapadala yan kay supplier number 2 or kaya naman, si supplier number 2, pupunta kay Treasury Department. So, whichever is applicable. So, ang importante, kompleto na, nagawa na ng voucher, nagawa na ng cheque. So, ipapadala na po yan kay supplier number 2. So, ito po yung pinaka-proseso ng materials. So, kailangan nyo lang po yan tandaan or familiarize man lang para alam nyo po yung mga nangyaring transaction doon sa ating process. Pero as a cost accountant, ang ating concerned department is yung accounting department. So kailangan nyo lang maintindihan yung mga nangyari bago napunta yung document sa accounting department before yan na-record as raw materials, then accounts payable, then eventually na-record ng vouchers payable, then cash in bank. Okay, since we already discussed the process involving materials, so alam na natin kung paano nag-work, kung saan order, sino yung mag-order, ano yung mga documents na involved. So ngayon naman, punta naman tayo on how to control materials cost. Kasi sabi nga natin kanina, materials cost is a big chunk dun sa ating manufacturing cost. So kapag nagkamali tayo ng pag-control ng cost, so magiging malaki yung impact niyan dun sa profitability ng company. So one of the ways in order to minimize the cost is to know yung ating reorder point. So reorder point, this is the level of inventory which triggers an action to replenish the particular inventory stock. So kailangan po nating magkaroon ng strategy kung kailan tayo mag-order ng ating raw materials. Kasi alam naman natin na hindi maganda na mag-retain ng materials, ng madaming materials in a certain period of time. Although may advantage yan kasi in case nagkaroon tayo ng sudden demand, so meron tayong mahuhugot. Ang problema kung hindi yun dadating, so dahil tayo ay nagme-maintain ng ng high level of inventories, so ang disadvantage niyan is of course additional cost such as storage fee, Tapos yung babayaran mo magbabantay, magbabayad ka pa ng insurance, and so on and so forth. So that's why kailangan po talagang malaman natin yung concept ng reorder point para ma-optimize natin or ma-minimize natin yung cost involved. So ibig sabihin, kapag dumating na yung point ng reorder, so dito pa lang tayo magkakaroon ng reorder or mag-order tayo ng panibagong stocks kasi nga ire-replenish na natin yung stocks. So paano malalaman ng management kung kailan tayo magkakaroon ng bagong order? So meron po tayong mga considerations dyan. So first consideration, so we have to know the frequency at which the material is issued. So ibig sabihin daw, kailangan nating alamin yung kung magkano kung ilan yung daily requirement natin or kung ano yung behavior ng materials usage dun sa ating factory. So from there, malalaman po natin yung ating daily usage na gagamitin natin para makuha natin yung reorder point. So another consideration is what we call lead time. So lead time is the length of time it takes for a material to be delivered from supplier after an order has been placed. So ibig sabihin, kailangan din daw nating malaman yung lead time or ibig sabihin yung time na tayo ay magpi-place ng order sa ating supplier hanggang sa si supplier ay i-deliver yung product. Kasi during that time, kung wala na tayong inventory, so magkakaroon tayo ng out of stock. So ma-out of stock yung inventory, madedelay ang ating production process. So dapat during lead time is meron pa tayong ginagamit na inventory for our daily operation. So next consideration is what we call safety stocks. Although enough naman na yung lead time kasi during the lead time, kailangan meron tayong nagagamit. Kaya lang may mga pagkakataon kasi na hindi natin control such as fortuitous events or kaya naman nagkaroon na basta fortuitous events. So anything that is out of our control. So ang makakatulong sa atin doon is yung tinatawag po nating safety stocks. Because safety stocks is the level of extra stock that is maintained to mitigate risk of stock out caused by uncertainties in supply at demand. So, ibig sabihin, kailangan daw po nating alamin yung lead time para malaman natin kung ilang araw yung iimbaking nating inventory. At the same time, we have to make an provision or provisions for safety stocks. So, ang safety stocks, ano lang naman yan, nakadepende yan sa past performance or yung past behavior ng ating inventory. So, ibig sabihin, professional judgment yan ng company. So, pag pinagsama-sama mo yan tatlo, so makukuha po natin yung tinatawag po nating reorder point. Tandaan, ang reorder point, nakadepende po yan dun sa number ng inventories na minemaintain natin. So, ito po ang formula para malaman natin yung ating reorder point. So, kailangan daw natin kuhanin yung daily usage or yung daily requirement, multiply natin sa lead time. So, ibig sabihin, pag kinuha natin yung amount na yan, so during that time, ito yung number of inventories na kailangan meron tayo para hindi tayo magkaroon ng stock out. Then ipa-plus mo lang yung safety stocks in order to get the reorder point. Okay, so as we discussed earlier, the reorder point, so we discussed when to order. The next question is how many materials to be ordered. So that question will be answered with the concept of economic order quantity or EOQ. So economic order quantity is the ideal order quantity a company should purchase to minimize inventory costs such as holding costs, shortage costs, and order costs. So meaning, meron tayong two major costs involved under economic order quantity. So in order to get the economic order quantity or the ideal number of inventory to be ordered, so meron po tayong order cost and we also have the carrying cost. So order cost, it involves costs related to ordering the materials. So ibig sabihin, as much as possible, in order to limit the order cost, so dapat limitahan lang din natin yung ating pag-order. Ang problema, if we order less often, so magiging result naman yan, kailangan natin mag-order ng madami. So if we order too much, ang result naman yan sa carrying cost, lalaki yung carrying cost natin kasi mas marami tayong i-maintain na inventory. Kasi ang carrying cost, example niyan yung storage cost, yung storage cost, then insurance, and so on and so forth. So since ang relationship nila adverse, kailangan makahanap tayo ng balance between them. So as much as possible, we limit the number of orders and we also limit the number of inventories to be maintained. So makakatulong po yung formula ng economic order quantity para sure tayo na yung order natin ay hindi kulang at the same time hindi rin siya sobra. So to compute for the economic order quantity, so this is our formula. So square root of 2 times AR times OC divided by CC. So 2 ang ginagamit na number because para masabi na average inventory. So multiply to AR. So AR represents annual requirement and OC represents order cost and CC represents carrying cost. So as much as possible, sabi nga natin kanina, we limit the number of inventories. Tapos yung carrying cost naman, nililimit din natin yung number of orders. Kaya yung relationship nilang dalawa ay inversely proportional. So tatandaan nyo lang yung formula na yan. So kapag natandaan nyo yan, so mabilis na natin mako-compute how many materials to be ordered na hindi malulugi sa company at okay, so let's have a quick illustration of economic order quantity. So let's assume that John Inc. purchases tennis balls at 20 per dozen from its suppliers. So the John Sports will sell 34,300 dozen of tennis balls evenly throughout the year. So the total cost to handle a purchase order is 10 pesos. So the insurance, property tax, and rent for each dozen tennis balls in the average inventory is 1.4. So the information na kailangan natin is yung number 1, which is yung order cost, 10 pesos, carrying cost 1.4, and the annual requirement 34,300. So i-effect lang natin yung formula. So square root 2 times 34,300, which is the annual requirement, times 10, which is the order cost, over 1.4, which is the carrying cost, then square root natin yung result. So ang magiging economic order quantity natin, or the number of tennis balls to be purchased on the next reorder point, will be 700 tennis balls.